Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel. Brendan is off tonight, so I'm flying solo. Here, Brendan will be back on Monday when we resume our regular Freedom Reporters programming. But for tonight, you're stuck with me, so I'll do the best I can to inform you and bring you the latest on today's top news stories, which include the Worldwide Freedom Rally, which took place obviously around the world, but here in Canada, we have highlights from Toronto, Calgary, Sarnia, Ontario, a few other places, and a little bit of perspective and insight to go along with that as well. And we have some highlights, including some speeches from those rallies. We also are going to check in with the People's Convoy, of course, which continues down in Hagerstown. And we'll talk a little bit about the International Energy Agency highlighting and declaring basically an energy emergency because of the oil pinch, which is resulting from the oil embargo on Russian oil imposed by the United States and Canada. And, well, we're going to outline a plan that they've come up with, which they say is aimed at dealing with the oil shortage, but I'll illustrate that it's not really just about that. It's really about more control and rolling out a plan to, it's sort of a war on the car, a war on your rights, a war on your freedoms, and they're using this as another excuse to further erode those freedoms and rights. And we'll get into that as the broadcast continues. Also in Ukraine, Russia says they have fired the very first hypersonic missile in battle and used that to destroy some sort of a munitions storage facility. But before we get into that, we'd like to, start with some speeches at the Worldwide Freedom Rally in Toronto, where we had Derek Sloan of the Ontario Party, was federally a member of Parliament with the Conservatives until he got kicked out. Maxime Bernier from the People's Party of Canada, and Randy Hillier, who has announced he's not going to be running for re-election provincially in Ontario, but has been a leading voice in the freedom movement. And he also spoke at today's Freedom Rally in Toronto, the Worldwide Freedom Rally. And we have some interviews to share with you from Toronto as well. And Carla Olson is going to, we'll have a clip from her, a video from her. She was in Sarnia, Ontario today at the Worldwide Freedom Rally there. So we'll be sharing that with you as well. But first up, let's go to these clips, highlights, speeches at the Toronto Worldwide Freedom Rally from some of the leading voices in the freedom movement in Canada.
People who represent your needs and your values. Thank you very much, freedom for all, and let's keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give it up for USA, everybody. Next speaker, I've been following since March 2020 because he was the first one to question what's really going on in our country. Derek Sloan is the former federal member of parliament who was ejected from Conservative Party for speaking the truth about COVID-19. Derek held press conference in Parliament Hill exposing the truth about lockdowns and COVID-19. One with Dr. Baron Bridle. Give it up for Dr. Bridle. Dr. Patrick Phillips. Give it up for Patrick Phillips, doctor. And Dr. Donald Welsh. Give it up for Dr. Donald Welsh. This became the most watched Canadian parliamentary video of all time, with nearly 800,000 views before being censored. Derek has 7 court summons for organizing and speaking at events like this. Derek's now leader of Ontario Party, a registered provincial party that will be fighting in the election this June against that court. Give it up for Derek Sloan! Hello, Toronto, how are you doing?
There's so many people here today. I just met with someone 2 seconds ago that came up to me and said, Derek, you saved my life. I saw the video you did on Parliament Hill with the doctors. I was going to get the shot. I saw it. It got pulled down the next day. And I said, you know what? Something's up. That started their look into truth. They're looking into more information. And they're here today as I think an organizer of this event. So I want to thank all the doctors and everyone who's been speaking the truth. I'm grateful to be here today in the company of free citizens. It's a cold day, but you're here because your dedication to liberty is stronger than the inconvenience of cold weather. Your dedication to freedom is stronger than the fear that your current government, the medical tyrants running our world, want you to feel. They know if they can keep you afraid, they can keep you controlled. But you've said, I will not buy into your fear anymore. I will have my freedom. We can all see our breath today. Isn't that a beautiful thing? To see the breath of life coming out of our mouth without anything to choke it off. The breath that you see rising from your own mouth as you freely breathe. In and out, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of what we've lost and what we must now fight to regain. At one time in this province, not long ago, people were able to breathe freely. We enjoyed other freedoms as well. We could believe freely. We could speak freely. We could meet freely. And those freedoms we enjoyed. They were all around us, just like the air we breathe. Do you remember? Do your children remember what it's like to be free and normal? Not long ago, with every breath we breathed in Ontario, we could breathe freedom. We didn't know we had it. Maybe because our freedom was so effortless and available, like the air. Many of us took it for granted. It's only now when we're experiencing the suffocating effects of mandated muzzles that choke us, mandated isolation that robs us of community, and mandated censorship that robs us of the truth. We see our freedom is gasping and we're down to our last breath. But where there is breath, there is life. Where there is life, there is hope. Today I have a message of life and hope. I'm here today as the leader of the Ontario Party. My purpose as leader, my purpose of the party is to bring back freedom to this province. We'll be rolling out our policies over the next coming weeks. But I want to tell you today, one of our key policies is to reverse the province's COVID mandates and restrictions. If elected, an Ontario Party government will abolish the current COVID mandates. We promise to make legislation to ensure that the mandates enforced by this government are completely illegal in the future. Mandatory masking, gone. Restricting what organizations can and can't open, Gone. Vaccine passports. Gone. Forever. Now, I know that some of you have experienced far more hardship because of the passports. To those that have suffered that injustice, know that you will be helped. An Ontario Party government, if elected, will require that anyone fired or suspended without pay for resisting the mandate must get their job back. Students or teachers in post-secondary education who were kicked off their campuses for resisting must be readmitted and course credits lost due to removal. Due to removal must be let back on campus and their courses reinstated. Regarding those who lost jobs, our party will make sure that any monetary loss is compensated. In addition to bringing back freedom, we need true justice. This may be my party's policy, but it's more than that. This can be the policy for any politician, any political body that wants to see freedom return to this province. We've had too much division, and now is a time for unity in the name of freedom. That's why I'm pledging to Ontarians that my party will work with any other party or politician who shares our hatred of tyranny and our love of freedom. Please, my fellow politicians, tell me, how can we work together? I've had missteps in the past. We've all had missteps. But I hope that the future of our province is our focus right now. Let me pose the same question to everyone out there, to every citizen of Ontario. How can we work together? The moment has come. Now is the time for you to get involved in politics. My party needs people just like you, its candidates, riding association members, door knockers. The Ontario Party is ready to throw off the hand that is strangling your freedom, but we can't do it without you. Join us. Go to our website, because with your help, we can win.
Yeah!
When we do, everyone in this province who loves freedom will breathe easier. Thank you, and God bless Ontario.
Yep.
United, we'll never be defeated.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. Wait one second.
Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!
Hold on, everything. Let's go. Here's next speaker. Now it's loud. I love it. So next speaker is Bruce Party. He's Executive Director of Rights Group and Professor of the Law. He's one of the authors of the Free North Declaration, a call to arms to protect civil liberties in Canada from COVID extremism and overreach. Bruce raised the alarm as soon as we went into our first lockdown in spring of 2020. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. that we were crossing a dangerous threshold and would not easily get our country back. He and his partner have been pushing ever since to defeat public health tyranny and recover our free society. Bruce Party, everybody!
All right, here's the thing, folks. You have already won. Now, I don't mean that this is over. It's far from over. And there's trouble coming down the pipes. And I know it's been a hard go. Your jobs, your kids' welfare, your relationships,
I've done that many times.
your travel, in all kinds of ways. This has been a hard go.
But I just want welcome.
Is a corrupt organization. Run by the Line Canada.
Hold on.
Work with the OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, registered by Line Canada. Do not work with that organization.
Testing. Here we go. Okay. So as I was saying, look, don't forget this. You have already won because you have already passed the test. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said this. He said, let the lie come into the world. Let it even triumph, but not through me. And that's what you have done. We are living a lie in this country. You know it. I know it. They know it. They know that we know that they know it. And it doesn't matter. The lie will continue. But when we get our free country back, it will be because of you. You are the only last and best people standing in a country of sheep. You are the people who will be able to look in the mirror at the end of all of this and say to yourselves, I was not in the herd. I was not a coward. I had my own mind. And you are the only people who can say that. Now, here's one other way in which you have already won. If you have managed to stay clear and managed to keep your kids clear, it is possible that you will have made yourselves the healthiest people in this society. You are the only ones, and your kids are the only ones without what might turn out to be a ticking time bomb. So, when the going gets rough, and it will, because Canada is going to be among the last of the countries in the world to give this up, because we have become a nation of obedience and conformity. There are signs elsewhere that the wall is coming down in the UK, in Israel, in the Czech Republic, in the red states, and in fact in some of the blue ones. But Canada will be among the last. So you have to hang in there. And you have to know that when the going gets tough, you have already won. hang in there. Do it together. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Bruce Party, everybody. It's great to see more people coming in. Again, I just want to, if this is your very first rally, raise your hand right now. Look around you. We welcome you to the Freedom Family. This is Freedom Family, and we are one nation. Next speaker is a great pleasure for me to introduce as well. I was watching him speaking the truth against in spring 2020. Please pay attention to the people that have been standing for the freedom since day one. Randy Hillier served as a member of provincial parliament since 2007. He represents Lanark, Frona, Kingston since 2018 as a PC member until he was removed in 2019. He has been by far the most outspoken member of provincial parliament against the use of face masks, vaccines, lockdowns, and development of COVID camps during past year. He is well respected, and we are honored to have him here today. Randy Hillier, everybody! Welcome everybody to freedom in downtown Toronto, freedom in the capital of Ontario, and freedom in Canada. Listen, I wanted to, somebody is going to be speaking after me, and I just wanted to remind everybody that man and I stood at this statue base back in the fall of 2020, and it was a marvelous time. It was a little bit warmer. It was rainy that day, but in October, Maxine Bernier and I were up here on this statue talking about and breaking the laws of Ontario at that time.
Fuck yeah.
And I challenged Doug Ford. I said, come on out and give me a ticket. Come on out. I want to see you in court, Doug. And he was cowardly. And he didn't come out that day. But he did come out 25 more times after that. And I've got a wall full of tickets now. And I wanted to say this. Last Sunday, 2 OPP cruisers drove up to my house on the Sunday night. And I looked out, we were sitting in the kitchen, and my daughter said to me, I wonder who that might be, 2 cars coming up the laneway. And we all looked at each other and we said, well, it's probably the cops. And sure enough, 2 OPP cruisers were pulling in the laneway. So I went outside and I greeted them. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, we're just bringing you some more paperwork. I said, it must be a hell of a load of paperwork for 2 cruisers to come up to my house with summonses. We sent them on their way. We've got lots to do, lots of battles in the courts. But where we're going to win that is right here in the streets, is where we're going to win our freedom back. So I want to thank you all for being here, for speaking out and standing up in defense of freedom. Because we all know that this is a great struggle and a war with the enemies of freedom.
Absolutely.
But I want to also say, let you know about the Canada today compared to the Canada that I grew up in.
Absolutely.
These days, we often hear Canadians describing themselves or other Canadians as being nice, polite, and always saying sorry, even when there's nothing to be sorry about. It's as if Canadians today only see themselves through this singular lens, this singular defining characteristic of being docile, passive, and deferential. Now, I'm not opposed to anybody being nice. I'm not opposed to anybody being polite or apologetic. But if that's our only defining characteristic, then let's not be surprised that we are easily bossed around.
Amen.
Easily bullied. And we think that we're unable to fight back. But that's
doesn't describe me, and it doesn't describe you. And it certainly doesn't describe the Canada of our youth.
Right. Mr. Bernier.
When I was young, I had a hero. We all had heroes. People that we looked up to. People that we aspired to be like. People who embodied the characteristics that we tried to emulate. One of my heroes was a fellow named George Chuvalo.
Yeah.
Anybody remember George Chuvalo?
Yeah.
Put up your hand.
Woo.
He was the 5-time heavyweight champion of Canada. He's Canada's champion who fought 93 bouts in the ring. He fought Joe Frazier, George Foreman, and Muhammad Ali. And in 93 bouts, he was never knocked down and he was never knocked out.
Woo.
And as Muhammad Ali said after the fight, 15 rounds at Maple Leaf Gardens, Muhammad Ali said, George Chuvalo, he's the toughest guy I've ever fought. Now, George Chuvalo is a kind, nice, and considerate man, a gentleman. But make no mistake, he's a scrapper, he's a fighter, and he represents my Canada. He embodies my Canada. Scrappers and fighters.
Freedom.
We might not always win, but no one is going to knock us down and no one is going to knock us out.
Woo.
And that's who we have to be in this fight for our freedom, in this battle, in this war with the enemies of freedom. And who are these enemies that seek to destroy our freedom, destroy our economy, and who are shredding the very fabric of our society and our families? There are those that we can see. Our governments who seek to punish us if we act freely. Our public health authorities who seek to keep us in a state of fear and in denial of the evidence. Our media who promote these false narratives and censor and suppress those who speak with honesty and with facts. And then there are those who collaborate and enforce the message of fear, danger, and terror. The shopkeeper who refuses your entry if you smile and show your face. He is an enemy of freedom. The pub owner who demands to see your back pass or refuses you service is an enemy of freedom. The employer and the labor unions who demand mandatory vax or to fire you are enemies of freedom. The doctor who refuses to fill out your medical exemption, and the teacher who places a mask on your child are all unseen collaborators and enemies of freedom. Every person who casts scorn and ridicule upon those who act freely is an enemy of freedom. Then there are the profiteers who fill their pockets because of our fear. Big pharma, like Pfizer, Moderna, and so many others. Big tech, who also censor and suppress our freedoms, are enemies of freedom. And there are the hosts of so many others, like Fauci, who helped create a pandemic by creating a bioweapon with the communist Chinese in Wuhan. They are enemies of freedom. These people and their businesses are not our allies. They are the enemies of freedom. But there are more. They're the ones that I call the grifters of freedom. Those who have attempted to sabotage the freedom movement or to hijack it for their own personal fame or gain. They have fractured and sowed division within our movement, and they do it under the cloak and guise of being our friend and ally. And now we see more clearly what is in store for us, or what is not in the stores for us. As the mandatory vax for truckers take hold, our grocery stores and food supplies are being shorted. The shelves are being emptied. Our cattle feedlots in Western Ontario are in peril and in crisis. Basic food and necessities of life are intentionally being shorted by the enemies of freedom. And in every war, there's a term that's called the fog of war. It describes the confusion of not knowing who or where your enemy is. So let us all be alert. Let us all be awake, so we know who our enemy is, and let us stand up to these enemies and stare them down and reject their narrative of fear. We won't accept Dr. Tam, or Dr. Karen Moore, or Justin Trudeau, or Doug Ford as our Canadian leaders. They are the enemies of our freedom. Let us all be like George Chavallo. Let us all go into the ring, regardless of who our opponents are. No matter how powerful they look or how daunting they appear, let them know we will never be knocked out. We will never be knocked down. We will never give up. We will go the distance, however far and however long that distance is.
Fuck yeah!
We will not surrender. We are Canadians, and we are free Canadians.
Hey, John Tory!
On this stage, and everyone in this crowd are free fighting Canadians, and we will not give up.
River!
We must be like that childhood hero of mine. We must put Ontario and Canadians first. We must put faith, freedom, and families before fear. And we must fight to always defend them every time. Thank you very much. Give it up for Randy here! Randy! Every single one of you has responsibility to stand up for what is right and make sure that civil disobedience is the only way we can end this peacefully and fast. The next speaker I'm going to bring up, Maxime Bernier is the leader of the People's Party of Canada, and Canada's only federal candidate who's speaking out and fighting for the removal of all unscientific coordinated measures and vaccine mandates. Mr. Bernier has been a member of Parliament 5 times, serving as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of State for Small Businesses and Tourism. In 2018, he left the Conservative Party of Canada to sit as independent MP and announced the launch of his new party, the PPC. The Purple Wave is here! Maxime Bernier, let's go! Hello, everybody! Freedom fighters! I believe it is time to fact check what these authoritarian politicians told us 20 months ago. It's easy. They lied to us. They lied. They said only 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That was a lie. They said that COVID is a deadly virus, and they said that about 3% of infected people will die. That was a lie. In reality, less than 1% of the infected people with comorbidities died from COVID. Yes, that's sad, but that's the reality. They told us that masks, lockdowns, curfews, stay-at-home orders, that will be temporary until we have a vaccine. That was another lie. They told us that the vaccine will be efficient and 95% efficient. That's what they said. And if you have the vaccine, you won't catch the virus, you won't spread the virus. That was a lie. After 2 shots, vaccinated people and unvaccinated people can catch and spread the virus. All lies. And now we have 85% of the population that is vaccinated. And we were supposed to have herd immunity. But now we don't have that. We have a pandemic of the vaccinated people. They told us that when 75% of the population will be vaccinated, we will regain our freedom. That was a lie. They always postpone the goalposts. They always change the goalposts. I'm tired of that. You are tired of that.
Yes!
The end is coming. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough!
Enough is enough. And these lawyers will see that the future is in our hands. I want to thank you, everybody, freedom fighters. It is because of you that we are winning that battle. We said, and I said in the beginning of the pandemic, that when tyranny becomes law, revolution becomes our duty. And that was our duty. And now we have that ideological revolution, that freedom revolution here in Canada, in UK today, and that's coming. We are winning that battle because truth will always win. Let's do the battle together. We will win. That speaker is the doctor that I listen to and the expert that I listen to. Dr. John Killian recently resigned as an emergency room and family practice physician due to her concerns that Ontario health system and Grey Goose Health Services crossed ethical lines from the pandemic. She estimated that 80% of patients she saw in the ER during the past month who had expanded symptoms were double vaxxed. We have to make sure that we listen to the doctors and experts. Dr. John Killian, let's go!
Did you check it? Did you see if it was going okay?
No, I was filming and shooting and.
Thank you, Toronto. So I'm just going to turn this camera around. There are more police here than there are actual people attending this rally today. And it's such a sad state we live in right now. They have some snow plows right behind me blocking the streets to prevent people from going into the London downtown core area to park to go to the rally. So it's I titled the video as it is. You'll see on the top caption there. See if I could switch this camera around and you'll get a taste of this whole situation.
Sorry, folks, my
Right across the
microphone
street
was
from
muted
me is
again.
a restaurant. And on the right-hand side of me is another snowplow. Yeah, Satan all around me, actually, the person was saying. I believe it. Here we have a blockade blocking the streets of Richmond and Dufferin. Police are directing traffic in that way. And I asked the police officer on the right-hand side of the cruiser, I said, what's going on here? And he says, well, he's just directing traffic. So, yeah, I kind of see that. And, boy, have they made a big statement. And way down here at the corner, way down at the distance, they got another blockade over there. And same thing beyond this church over here. The police are trying to direct traffic off of these grounds. So whoever, they probably got their message from Ottawa, and it's kind of rippling shade to London, Ontario. So what when I got here on site, it was really sad, and I had to make this video and title the video that way. Do we live in a police state? Well, as you can see on the right-hand side here, when I walk a little closer, you'll see the crowd that is accumulated over the time. I've been here for about, I would say, close to a half hour. And it took some time for people to park. And just beyond this whole perimeter, they blocked off all parking access towards the public park. Isn't there a public park? Aren't we allowed to go public parks anymore? Apparently not. The police have made a statement saying that you can't park there anymore. So we're going to block off the streets. That's what the London police said. And here we have the crowd here. As you can see, there's police presence on the left-hand side there. This whole parking lot is empty. Now, normally on a Saturday, there's a skating rink here. People skate towards. Apparently, that's all melted away. But sad day for London, Ontario. Sad day. People are starting to walk here from a distance to get to this location, downtown London. How are you? Yeah. Hey. Good. Can I ask you a couple questions for live? Are you okay with that? What do you see from what's your opinion from what's happening here, from what you saw here approaching this whole area here?
Well, I was really surprised about all the blocking of streets. And I was just talking to the police here and they said, well, just in case. And, you saw Ottawa, didn't you? And I said, well, this is London. Okay. Like it's not happening here. Nothing's happening here too much. Just normal people. Well, they might come from out of town. I said, well, I met somebody from Chilsenberg, but they're not here to disrupt. They're here to cheer on freedom.
Exactly. And I was actually crying when I saw the heavy police presence here. And it's looks behind you here. Is it a crowd to be afraid of?
I know it's the gentlest people I've ever met. And there's no reason. There's never been any problems in London, especially. Everybody's been respectful and I've never seen any. There's a protest group here and they all have masks on and they're all outside, of course. So I said, so on Monday, are you guys going to take your masks off? No. And I said, well, why not? She's, well, because we're going to wait till it's safe. And I said, well, the government's saying it's safe. Oh, do you mean you go by the government? I said, no, not necessarily. But I said, you guys usually do. So aren't you going to listen to them? No, we're just sticking by the science. Okay, I am too. So see you later.
Well, thank you for those words, and we'll see what it becomes of today. The transpires. Thank you. Yeah. Here we are, Victoria Park. Yeah, we'll have peace here.
So this was the situation in London, Ontario today, where they had more cops than demonstrators. They blocked off the streets, and this should concern everyone. This is a more serious thing than I think most people understand. What we're getting here is the Canadian equivalent of something that happened in Nazi Germany. It's a thing called Gleichschaltung.
Somebody a few questions?
Let's just bring this audio back up.
Where is he? What's that? Well, whatever. I'll be hanging around. If you see him, point him my way. Thank you. So I'm going to inquire a few questions.
Good work by Druthers News. They're a great news organization, great newspaper. Throughout the pandemic, I think they've provided some excellent journalism.
Ask somebody a few questions? No questions. No. Anybody want to ask somebody a few questions?
But as I was saying, Gleichschaltung, it's something that it was a strategy that was used in Nazi Germany. And we're seeing it play out here in Canada right now. And folks, we don't have much time. And I know that we're hearing words of encouragement from some of the speakers today. We heard one of the speakers say that we've already won. It's not true. This war for freedom is ongoing. And we're in a lot of danger. I refer you to Germany around 1933 and the Reichstag fire. Let me just that was the incident in which the Nazis staged a fire and used the fire. Well, they blamed it on their political opponents. And then over the course of about only 20 months, they implemented a strategy called Gleichschaltung, where they used a combination of tactics to control, there's the Reichstag fire, where they used these tactics to control all the institutions, control the government, and silence their political opponents. So what is Gleichschaltung? Gleichschaltung is it's Nazi terminology, and it's the process of Nazification that was used in Nazi Germany to establish a system of totalitarianism and coordination over all aspects of German society. They passed laws that gave Hitler ultimate power and took control of companies, government institutions, police. And under Gleichschaltung, one of the key tools that was used was censorship. Book burnings, we saw those in Nazi Germany, but of course it went beyond that. And under Gleichschaltung, there can be no dissent. And we're seeing that roll out in Canada. We've seen that today in London, Ontario. And the danger in all of this is that people aren't seeing it. They know that these things are bad, but they still think that we live in Canada, and how could this get any worse? And if you'd spoken to people about this even a couple of years ago, I don't think very few people would have thought that this would have been possible. Even just a couple of years ago, before all this stuff started rolling out with the pandemic and all of these authoritarian measures. Who would have thought that we would have seen our government impose the War Measures Act or the Emergencies Act in response to a peaceful protest in Ottawa? Unthinkable. And yet here we are. Who would have thought that in London, Ontario today, for a peaceful protest where people are fighting and demanding their freedoms, who are fighting to have their charter rights and constitutional rights restored, people who are asking for the law to be enforced and applied equally, that we would see police using street control tactics, riot control tactics by bringing in snow plows and so on, because they're so afraid that they responded in this way. This shows that they are afraid of the demonstrators. It shows that they're afraid of the people. But they are clamping down hard and clamping down harder every week. And we're seeing this in comments from our leaders, from our police chiefs, from mayors, from our premiers. And it's something that needs to stop. Specifically, we saw comments this week from Calgary's police chief that are of extreme concern. And I'm going to bring up this interview with Calgary's police chief, which was conducted by Global News. And I think it's extremely important that we listen very carefully to what he says and take note, because this all ties into what we saw happen in London and what we're going to be seeing in cities as we move forward with more demonstrations. Listen very carefully. And I'm telling you that these police chiefs are all getting the same talking points. They're all getting the sorry, I'm here by myself tonight, so it's taking me a few minutes to get these clips all lined up. All these police chiefs are being given marching orders. Let's listen to what he said in this clip from this Global News interview earlier this week. This was a couple of days ago, and in preparation for what was coming across Canada today.
Line this weekend after last weekend's clash between anti-COVID mandate protesters and counter-protesters. Police got involved to separate the sides using bikes to push the counter-protesters back. That led to some controversy of its own, with many questioning police actions and what will be happening moving forward. Police Chief Mark Neufeld joins us now with the latest. Good morning to you, Chief.
Good morning, Dallas.
I understand the service met on Tuesday to talk about what to do as a force moving forward. What can you tell us about that meeting?
Yeah, you know what? I can tell you that we did meet, and we continue to actually. This is only actually Wednesday morning. So we continue to look at a number of options and examine what happened last weekend. I think we saw an inflection point for sure. As I've said publicly, we have historically seen high degrees of cooperation from protest groups in the city, including what I'm now calling the anti-democracy group. Certainly we've seen the most.
Whoa. So let's just stop right there. Right there. He's calling the freedom protesters the anti-democracy group now. He's calling the freedom protesters the anti-democracy group. This is the chief of police for the city of Calgary. These protesters were exercising their right to free speech, and last weekend they did nothing wrong. They did not block the roadway. They did nothing wrong. But the police chief is taking a stand against them now. This is dangerous talk, and let's let him continue. And you listen to what he says. Listen to his tone.
Most recent outlay of what their objectives are, and I think they're sort of hard to understand and incoherent. I think
they're incoherent, he says. The freedom protesters are incoherent. He's not talking about the counter protesters that needed to be pushed back because they were blocking the road and were causing problems. The freedom protesters were doing nothing wrong, but he's still laying blame there and focusing on them. He has an issue with them. Why? Why? And why is he calling them anti-democracy? They're fighting for freedom and a restoration of democracy. I'm going to roll this back just a little bit, pick it up again.
In the most recent outlay of what their objectives are, and I think they're sort of hard to understand and incoherent.
Maybe that's because he's not listening. Maybe that's because the politicians aren't listening. And more than that, maybe he's saying these things because he's been given marching orders by political powers that shouldn't be directing police, but clearly are. And we're getting the same rhetoric from our prime minister, our premiers, and our police chiefs. And they're all singing from the same song page.
I think we all thought that after the mandates were reduced and lifted here in Alberta, that we'd see a subsiding of the protests.
But they haven't been eliminated. It's been a shell game where some are lifted here, but others remain in place over there. If you're not vaccinated, you still can't get on an airplane or a train or a bus and so on. People who lost their jobs are still unemployed because they didn't get vaccinated. These are the issues. So I'm sorry, but there's still a long way to go.
We haven't, and it appears that we're not going to. And so we're looking at the siding of the protests, and we haven't, and it appears that we're not going to. And so we're looking at different options as to how we can manage this differently than other protests, because I think, again, most of the groups that we deal with are quite cooperative with the police. They're respectful of the community, and they actually want to be able to exercise their Section 2 charter rights, but they also want to do it in a way that doesn't, negatively impact the community. And this group certainly doesn't.
Or irritate you or people who see these protesters as political opponents, right? That's the truth. That is the truth. They have been peaceful and they have been cooperative. The only violence that has been coming from these protests has been exercised by police. You shouldn't be treating these protests any differently than any others, because you have no actual legitimate reason to do so. This guy's a numbskull.
Seem to be in that camp anymore.
There are now calls on social media to get more people to join.
And note that the anchor just lets this all slide. She's on side. No questioning this, no pushback, no hardball questions, just accepts it.
Join the counter protests on Saturday. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the anti-mandate protesters vow to continue until their demands are met. So what are you expecting to see this weekend?
Well, I guess it's not surprising. I see that on social media as well. And at times like this is typically what we'll see. It definitely complicates matters for police, because certainly as we get ready to deploy for the weekend, we would like to be able to just deal with one group, but that may not be the reality. And if that's the case, we'll deal with what comes. But certainly, to decrease volatility and to be able to allow officers to focus where I think they need to be focused, it would be much easier if we could focus on one group.
In terms of the cost of resources to the Calgary Police Service in being at these protests, the bike units, the Hawks helicopter, the manpower, how much is the service spending on this from the CPS budget?
Yeah, so in 2021, Dallas, the numbers came in at around 1.9 million to police protests for the year 2021. Now, obviously, those costs are being incurred in 2022 as well. But it's not just, as I've said before, not just the hard costs for people coming in on overtime or that type of thing. It's the opportunity cost. Officers are being brought in increasing numbers from all around the city. And when they're downtown policing protests like this, they're certainly not doing other very valuable work that they could and should be doing.
Yeah, authoritarian government is very expensive. It's very expensive to crack down on peaceful people. It's very expensive to keep everyone in check. It's very expensive to put your boot on people's necks.
And so I think that's a real cost there too, that we don't see in terms of, finances or numbers, but I certainly think it's there and it's impactful.
Free the people, save the money.
In your remarks on Monday, you said that these two sides are both looking for a fight, but for months there was no counter-protest movement outside of calls to 311. So this movement in the streets showed up really as a result of frustration from inaction and disruptions in the Beltline community. How do you think it got to this point?
Talking to people in the community, and as recently as yesterday, speaking with business improvement area representatives there, it becomes clear, I think, that folks were sort of, frustrated, as you can understand and appreciate. I think they were kind of gritting their teeth, because I think there was a thought that the mandates and the restrictions were going to be lifted, and people could see that based on the reducing, case counts and the projections that had been provided. And I think they thought that the protest would subside. And then when they didn't, I think that's when things really became frustrating for people. And I think that's what's caused the boiling point here.
Yeah, the boiling point is being caused because you just don't freaking get it. And if you do, you're ignoring it because you're just an order taker, which is probably more the case. Well, you're probably an idiot too. You have no business being a police chief. You should resign.
And now we waited for that, and the protests did not stop. So the blame has shifted a little bit. As you said, you feel like police are being blamed for the actions of these protesters. What
Yeah, rightfully so.
do you think the Calgary Police Service's role is here?
Well, you know what, and it's not so much, it's not uncommon, I think, for people to be frustrated and for the police as the most visible sort of arm of government that's dealing with these things to be blamed. And so I'm not saying that that's problematic. I guess what I'm saying, though, is that I think now is a time where I think the citizens of Calgary and the Beltline want to see their leaders working together in their best interests. And so I don't think this is time for blaming and shaming. I think it's actually time to get...
Excuse me? Excuse me? You don't think it's time for blame and shame? What have you been doing in this interview? You've been laying blame. You've been insulting people with carefully chosen words. What a joke.
Get together and do the hard work that's required and focus forward.
Gleichschaltung. No room for dissidents.
So our role is an obvious one. I mean, we're responsible for policing these protests, making sure that the community is safe and that we don't have violence. And
always do it in the name of safety.
Property damage, but it does go farther than that. I think these protesters are from the anti-democracy group, are actually
anti-democracy group. He's labeling them anti-democracy, which is the opposite of what they're about. They're all about democracy. They're about exercising their right to free speech. And what have we been hearing? Put pressure on politicians. They're looking for political change through lawful, peaceful protest and elections.
Pushing the limits of Section 2 of the Charter. And that's how we ended up seeing things like, Freedom Convoy, Freedom Rodeo, Freedom Breakfast, this type of thing. This is much different. This is a different type of protest than we've seen in the past. We thought they would stop and they won't. And now they're articulating that basically we want to do whatever we want to do. And so our job is to figure out how we sort of bring in Section 1, which is about placing reasonable limits on those abilities to protest in the interests of community safety and well-being.
That was an important thing that he just said there, and disturbing, because they're going to use lawfare. They're going to use Section 1 to impose limits on peaceful protesters who are out there asking for their freedom back. This is the tip of the iceberg. Make no mistake. And this is a message that we're hearing from our politicians and from police chiefs across the country.
So that's our role in this.
Okay, can you see how people want to hold CPS accountable here in some way for it getting to this point?
Gleichschaltung. Gleichschaltung.
Yeah, I do. I think at the end of the day, people are frustrated and they're tired in this pandemic environment. So it's not surprising that people are looking for somebody to blame. And as I say, that's okay. If it's going to be us, that's okay. I really do feel for our officers on the front line that are doing this work, because it's very...
If you were doing your job properly as police chief and implementing policy properly as police chief and doing things that were in the best interests of the community as police chief, you wouldn't be encountering this level of criticism. You keep squeezing hard like this, you keep squeezing harder, you keep implementing these tactics, and you'll be facing even more criticism because it's not in the best interests of the community and it's not Canadian.
Difficult, complex work. But the reality of it is they're doing a good job. They have been doing a good job. And I'm going to tell folks this. We continue to be engaged in this work, and we are there for communities like the Beltline and Calgarians all the way around. This is a complex situation. I can assure you that we are working very hard on dealing with this. We've got partners engaged, and we are going to be there for you, and we're going to work this through.
You said we have.
He's going to allow his police service to be used as a political tool. He's going to allow the politicians to weaponize his police service so that they can crack down on their political opponents. That's what's going on here.
Have to work together. I assume that means with the city as well, as Mayor Jyoti Gondek has called this a parade, not a protest, says they need support by the Calgary Police Service. The city did meet yesterday on this. It resulted in a letter to the Police Commission because that's really all the city can do at this point. Meantime, Police Commission member Heather Campbell tweeted out a link following the clash last weekend to a site that outlines the process for filing formal complaints against the police, saying she believes there.
And isn't it interesting that we have Police Commission, Police Service Board members, politicians calling the cops out for their actions against the counter-protesters? But on the other side of the equation, when it's the freedom protesters, they're fair game. They can shoot them with rubber bullets, tear gas in Ottawa. They can get out a sonic cannon and blast them with it. No problem. They can trample people with horses. No problem.
There are a few people who may require that information. How many complaints have been filed? What does the service do with those? And how does this make you feel?
You know what? Well, I think it's a pragmatic release. At the end of the day, when you do see, and we saw the public reaction to what they saw on social media, and so that's completely understandable. Factually, that is the process. The process is available, obviously, on the police website. The process is available on the commission's website. You know, when we have commissioners tweeting it out during the event itself, you worry that there's perhaps a bias there. I think officers feel like there may not be support because there isn't even a discussion or a question or a briefing about what's happened just yet. But I actually think sending that out is fine because I think after an event like that, you know, people may factually need that. But I think the unintended consequence is that coming from somebody who's on the police commission is that it sends the message that there is no support for the people doing the difficult work on the ground.
We are out of time, Chief, but I do want to leave any final words to you.
You know what, just to reiterate, I think, you know, there's lots said and that sort of thing about the issues. I can tell you that we completely understand what's going on and sympathize with the folks in the Beltline. And so we are fully engaged in this. We're being very thoughtful about the way that we approach it, not trying to be emotional and just react sort of in the moment. And I think you'll see a very different approach on Saturday. This is a difficult issue. We'll continue to work on the coming weekends. And I think there'll be a time in the future to look back and say, hey, was there opportunities to be able to intervene differently or sooner or whatever? And we'll do that. But right now, our folks are focused on the issue that I think Calgarians want us to focus on. And that's the issue right in front of us this coming Saturday.
Still.
So that was leading up to this weekend's protest in Calgary. And I find his words disturbing. I find the approach disturbing. Gleichschaltung. Gleichschaltung. Every premier, every police chief, virtually every police chief, all the ones that are getting media attention, the media itself, the government has taken control. They've all been captured. I use that word captured. Corporations have been captured. Our police services used to engage in something called community policing, and I've mentioned this before. Community policing was the idea that you would get officers out onto the street to mix with the people, get them out of their cruisers, get to know your community, apply the law equally among all people, have your officers be part of the community. We don't have community policing anymore. What we have now is progressive policing. And with progressive policing, what we're seeing is the application of the law through a system of equity, not equal, equity. They want equal outcomes, not equal application of the law. So police are assessing these protests based on political metrics. If this group is deemed to be to sit at a certain point on a victim scale or on a social hierarchy that's here, then they get a pass. But if this group sits at a different place on the social hierarchy and they're not seen as victims, maybe they're seen as a group of oppressors or political dissidents who aren't on board with a collectivist mindset, a progressive mindset, a fascistic, communistic mindset, they don't get a pass. If they're freedom protesters, if they're in favor of freedom, they get cracked down on because they're a threat to public safety. Why are they a threat to public safety? They're a threat to the safety of the politicians, a threat to the safety of their jobs, because they're asking for change. They're not part of the collective. They're dissidents. Therefore, they're a threat. Therefore, they get cracked down on. That's not equal application of the law. That's not constitutional. It's a violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Community policing is out the window in this country. Progressive policing is in. Our police services have been captured by politicians who are implementing a new system of government, a system that undermines our Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms intentionally. This is extremely dangerous. And we don't have much time left because this process of Gleichschaltung has reached full speed. It's full speed ahead because the process includes not only crackdowns like we saw in Ottawa against the truckers, which was the Canadian equivalent of the Reichstag fire, which they didn't get, but they turned it into, through the media, their own version of that, an excuse to implement these measures. Justification for crackdowns. That's what we're getting. And this process is fully underway. That's why we have this new legislation in Ontario for the school systems, where it's anti-hate legislation, anti-racism legislation. But in reality, it's not about that. It's about thought crimes. Read the legislation. Read the bill. And it's close to passing. And it will pass. It allows the school system to indoctrinate children and target political dissidents. Anyone who might be engaging in wrongthink. And all it takes is an accusation. Due process is out the window. And you will lose your job if you work in the school system. And that's just the beginning of all of that in the province of Ontario, Canada. Once that passes in Ontario, it will spread to other provinces. More than that, we have censorship legislation, which is making its way again through Parliament, and this time will likely be turned into law. And once that happens, and that's probably only a matter of weeks or maybe a couple of months away, programs like this may cease to exist. And there will be legal battles to try to keep programs like this on the air, online, But that censorship bill is powerful, and it's all part of this strategy of Gleichschaltung being implemented in Canada, which I guarantee hasn't been taught in our school systems. People are not aware. It took the Nazis 20 months. It took Hitler and the Nazis in Germany 20 months to fully implement their Gleichschaltung strategy after the Reichstag fire. This process began before the crackdown that we saw with the police against the truckers in Ottawa, before our government declared war on truckers and working class people in this country, a particular segment of our society, before they declared war on a group of people that they want to use as a scapegoat. 20 months. That's all it took. This is happening even faster now in Canada because it began a long time ago. That's why you're hearing those kinds of words from that police chief. That's why we heard similar comments from the Premier of British Columbia over the past week. That's why we're hearing it from virtually every politician. Nobody is standing up against this. Well, almost nobody. Nobody in power. Nobody in power. This is so dangerous. Canada is gone. It's already gone. If you want it back, you have to fight. Fight the information war. Fight peacefully. Get involved. Get involved in the political process. Stay educated. Stay aware. And if you can support our work here, you can donate at freedomreporters.com. You can click the link in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions or on Rumble. And I would ask everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, please switch over to Rumble. Watch over there. Subscribe to our channel there instead. We're trying to migrate everyone from YouTube to Rumble and to other platforms that are committed to free speech. It's vital because it's only a matter of time before YouTube throws everybody off that is a dissident, because YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they're all in on Gleichschaltung. As I said, this started a long time ago. And if you don't have free speech, you have no freedom. And this is an information war. That's why we're here fighting this fight on the information front. Because we need to hold our politicians and our public servants, like the Calgary police chief, accountable. That's the role of the media. That news anchor on Global did not do that. The news anchor on Global let it all slide because she's on side, because she gets a nice paycheck. And that's one of the tools they use to control the narrative and the people, to control the institutions, to control the media, to control the police service, to control all of our government institutions, to control our corporations. That is in large part the definition of fascism. Government control of institutions and corporations. Private ownership, but government control. And the other key element in that fascistic formula, censorship. It's not just censorship on YouTube. It's censorship being deployed and enforced by the cops. The cops in London, Ontario were engaging in the equivalent of censorship, not allowing people to go into an area, depriving them of their right to go into an area. Now, on the surface, it might seem like a small thing, traffic control. No. They were taking those measures. They had those snow plows in place to prevent trucks from coming in because they were afraid. Because they're victims of fear as well. Fear being a powerful tool, but they're afraid that a bunch of truckers might show up and cause a blockade. They knew there was a convoy rolling into town today, mostly made up of cars. So they blocked everything off to prevent them from going down there, causing any kind of a traffic jam, to have any kind of effective protest. They were they shut them down before they could get started because they're dissidents. But if it was another group, and you know what I'm saying, they would have been given a pass. They would have been given a pass. Again, if you can donate, freedomreporters.com is where you can make a donation. We need your help to stay on the air here and to continue to do these broadcasts. We've been on every night for 3 hours plus at a stretch, and we've been bringing you some great guests over the past week. And we could sure use your support to help continue to do this work and to call out our public servants. They work for us. Public servants. Calgary, London, Ontario, those were just a couple of the places where we saw demonstrations today, people calling for a restoration of their freedoms. Sarnia, Ontario was another place where we saw an outpouring of patriotic pride. And Carla Olson, who I know you haven't heard from for a while, was there today. And she had this video, so I'd like to bring Carla's video up for you and let her share this greeting with you, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with her. And let's let Carla speak for herself.
Hello, hello from downtown Sarnia, right in front of City Hall. I'm in my car now. I just met with, a pretty good show of people considering it's raining and so many are out of town. We stood there, lots of honks. We had some negative things. We did have some people honk to shoot us the finger, but you know what? That's expected. We still smiled. We still showed them joy, and it's wet. It's wet today. Just wanting to just wrap up and just thank everyone that did come out today to City Hall. And, it's just such a great thing to gather. Like, I cannot stress that enough, how important it is to get together, gather with people. It inspires you. It fills you with love. It fills you with joy for the week just to get you there. I'm so grateful to all of these people. I'm even grateful for the ones that shoot us the finger, because it lets me know that, we are doing something. We're inspiring something. Maybe they're probably thinking that we're foolish. Some of them are very angry. That's okay. We're going to continue to stand. We are standing for the rights and freedoms of Canadians. And we are standing specifically here in Lambton, in Sarnia, Lambton. You know what? We're being heard. People are noticing us. They're noticing that that there is an opportunity. Not an opportunity, that there are people actually standing for freedom, looking out for everyone. So, you know what? Thank you so much to all of you that came. And, I'm just forever grateful for you. So I'm going to sign off. Be kind. Be Canadian.
And that again, Carla Olson, who has been one of our freedom reporters here. And I can tell you that Carla, hang on here just a second. Carla has made a bit of a change, and she is running for office for the Populist Party of Ontario. She's been chosen as the nominee to be the candidate in the riding of Sarnia-Lambton in the upcoming Ontario provincial election. So I'm hoping to check in with her maybe in the next day or two to talk a little bit about what she's going to be doing with that. We'll bring her back onto the show to explain what her plans are and what her hopes are as a candidate for the PPO. But today she was down there in Sarnia-Lambton taking in the worldwide freedom protest on the Sarnia-Lambton front and had that greeting for us. And as always, very cheerful, positive, upbeat, and full of love. And that's why we love Carla, because she's awesome. And we wish her well in her new endeavor, her new quest for freedom through the political process and being a political candidate for the PPO, the Populist Party of Ontario, which is the sister party now to the People's Party of Canada, the PPC. And there's more to learn about the PPO because they've gone through several different names and several different versions of the party over the last few months as they try to get their act together heading into the next provincial election. So we'll try to find out what's going on with regard to the PPO and everything on that front. Now back to Toronto, I'd like to bring up a little bit from Greg Wycliffe just to promote him and what he's doing, because he is an awesome YouTuber, and he was down there again today fighting for freedom by fighting for free speech and exercising his right to free speech by interviewing people at the Freedom Rally in Toronto. And here's Greg Wycliffe. Let's just let some of his stuff roll.
Even you haven't broken a window.
Yeah, he does great work.
Terrorists.
Completely peaceful, did not break one window, still called Nazis. Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly all the terrorist countries are doing.
And we're just turning right onto a Bay Street here. Were you were you born in Canada?
No.
Where were you born?
Communist China. So
Is that right?
So I know the communists very well.
Yeah. And we were talking to a woman from China as well earlier.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how critical moment this is.
Yeah, exactly. Canada is at the crossroad.
Kind of crossroads.
Canada is a crossroad. And it's going down to so Canada is going down to the communism.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Trudeau is still in power.
Yeah. And do you have friends and family who are in China still?
Yeah, they are still in China.
And tell us about, because we kind of hear stuff living in Canada. We hear about the social credit system that's there, and that like if you criticize the government, you will be persecuted. Is that true?
Yeah, that's so. It's so in China.
Yeah.
Yes, it's that. And now it's happening in Canada now.
Right. And how bad is it?
So bad. You basically become a slave.
You become what?
You become a slave of the government.
You become a slave of the government.
Yeah. So if you do anything, that the government is not happy about, then you will be prosecuted.
Yes. Igor, look up behind you. Igor. We're just going to get out of the middle of the intersection here. Good job, Igor. Igor, the amazing cameraman.
And
oh, come on.
Interesting to hear from somebody who came to Canada from communist China. And Greg Wycliffe, great YouTuber. You should definitely check out his channel. We've had him on the program, of course, and he's a freedom
But you were
fighter.
saying, sir, like there's already the woman in China was saying there's already a QR code system where you need to get all your jabs to go to the grocery store. Is that?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, so it's happening in China now, and also in a lot of other countries.
Yeah.
So without a jab and without some QR code, you cannot leave your house, and you cannot go to the store to buy food, and you cannot travel. Yeah.
Right. So like that is a reality in China right now.
Yeah. Now it's becoming the reality in Canada.
Yeah.
So without that vaccine.
Yep. So
without
where do you want to
vaccine.
go, sir? You want to go this way or this way?
Let's go this way.
This way.
Yeah. Now
So
we see there.
I want to ask, you know, there's a lot of Canadian, like even my friends and family.
Yeah.
Are we gonna go this way? Excuse us. Like I know some friends and families who are saying, "Oh, you guys are protesting the mandates," but the mandates are ending. The mandates are ending, sir. So what is there to worry about? What would you say to someone who says that?
The mandate is not ending. It's only ending provincially.
Yeah.
It's not ending. It's not ending nationally.
Right.
So still Canadians cannot get on a plane, cannot take a train, cannot take a boat without that vaccine. Yeah, without the vaccine that means anyone without that vaccine status, you cannot leave Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you're confident that the government, the way it is going to continue to push legislation about more mandates and more kind of control.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah.
So even say provincially they are easing that restrictions, and but if they want, they can get them back. I mean, in 2 or 3 months. So the vaccine and mandate that has been cancelled now will resume.
Yeah.
I'm pretty 100% sure. Yeah.
It's not over.
No, never over.
It's not over.
Unless everyone becomes a slave.
Unless everyone become a slave.
Yeah.
So what do Canadians need to keep doing to fight against this?
We keep fighting. We should keep fighting.
And that involves like coming out to protest and things.
Protest and in social media. And I think the key point is to wake up more and more people.
Yeah.
Yeah, wake up more and more people.
Wake up more and more people. Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong
Wake
Kong.
up more and more people. Hong Kong. Hello. Yep.
Much more louder, fuck Trudeau. More fuck Trudeau.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you wanted to add in terms of, waking people up or encouraging people to come out and be counted?
Yeah, to encourage more people to come and to educate more people, to talk to your friends and relatives and even strangers about this vaccine mandate, about the communism.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as long as we wake up more and more people, so we can reverse the trend.
Yeah. And before you go, there's a lot of Canadians who are like, "Oh, Greg, you're crying about communism. Like, it's not communism." But like, you've lived in communist China.
Yeah, I live in communist Canada.
Yeah.
I was live communism, so I know what communism is.
Yeah.
So when Trudeau invokes that emergency act, then I know instantly the communist is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, he knows. He's been there before, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
No
problem. God bless you.
Cheers. We're going to keep streaming probably for another hour or two. But guys, if you want to support more of my content, like, share, and subscribe, and send an e-transfer to gregthecanadian@hotmail.com. Send an e-transfer there. Help me do more of this stuff and focus on it full time. How's it going? Ed?
Got 2 weeks to flat the curve, though, right? Great song, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, dude. We're live on YouTube. Is that okay?
How's it going? Yeah, I'm good.
We're here with the one and only Ed.
2 more times.
What's that?
Ed.
That's right.
There you go.
Were you with the convoy the whole time in Ottawa, or what was your?
I was there most of the time. I flew in Friday, got video footage of the convoy from the plane from North Bay to Sudbury.
Oh, nice.
So, and then we all caught him back and got him leaving North Bay.
Yeah.
So landed that night, and I was there with the exception of 4 days because I had to get back to do snowplowing. Really busy time.
Yeah.
Best feeling ever.
It really was, right?
It was unbelievable. My cheeks got sore for 2 days because I hadn't smiled in 2 years, literally. And you just get caught up in this, and like everyone's giving you high fives, yelling for freedom. It's like, wow, the country is woken up.
Yeah, and to give people context, like me and Ed here, I remember trying to organize July 1st, 2020. Hey, we're going to have a big protest in Ottawa. We wanted to make it as big as possible. And like, it was okay, like maybe a couple thousand people, but like this has kind of been a long time coming, because if you talk to the people at the convoy, sure, mandates is the main thing that brought people out, but there's a lot, it's kind of been a long time coming in terms of like the distrust or the disgust or like the reasons why people are upset with this government that we have right now.
Two things happened out there. People have woken up to the lies.
Yeah.
So
it's true. I had a guy.
Mainstream media, all they do is lie, or they only tell you half the truth.
Yeah.
Which is a lie, right?
Yeah.
Lie of
Well,
omission.
I talked to a guy earlier who never really liked the term fake news because it was a Trumpism and like he kind of looked down on it. But he was like, yo, after the thing that in Ottawa, it's like, yeah, this is fake news. Like this is maliciously dishonest stuff. So.
And then you get Trudeau saying, I'm going to invoke the emergency order. But it's not because of the trucks that are in Ottawa. It's because what they're doing at the border.
Right.
Guys, one lane was always open.
Is that right?
No, one lane was always kept open. Always.
So people were going through, but much slower.
Trucks were going through fresh fruit, vegetables. That was all coming through.
Okay.
Did you see the empty shelves? No.
Well, this is the thing that sucks, man. Like, it's so hard to even find out what's actually happening anywhere these days. Like, we don't have to go on the Ukraine and Russia thing, but it's like you hear something about what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. It's like, well, is that even verifiable? I don't know. Because like there's been instances where like the news has been caught lying pretty well, or like telling a story that isn't accurate.
Yeah, like when I started to wake up back in 2014, watching Rebel News.
Yeah.
Rebel's saying this, mainstream media is saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, someone's not up front with us, right?
Yeah.
And then you actually start digging in on the ground.
Yeah.
Looking at the independent reports. Okay, these people are clearly lying.
Right.
And the whole country got exposed to that in Ottawa.
Yeah.
The best, most peaceful, most cooperative. There was no division between French and English.
Yeah.
High fives, hugs, like it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a mass extinction event and COVID was real, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, we'd all be dead. Exactly.
Okay, so clearly it's BS.
Yeah.
Nobody even got sick.
Yeah.
Homeless people are gaining weight. Canadians are so generous, and thank you guys for donating. And they even tried to shut it down by eliminating all the money to pick up the odds and ends that people didn't donate. We'd have to go buy, right? There's always a need for this.
And crime in Ottawa rather went down as well while we were there.
Well, sure, because everybody had lots to eat. There's lots of food. They were giving them free food.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. It was just the most exhilarating experience ever.
Yeah. And I mean, what was it like to be there on the ground? And I was going to make a comment of how like it's brought out so many new like independent reporters to be like, this is what the actual story is. And like, there's all these people who have just been live streaming on the ground, and people are like, oh, you're the news. And it's like, well, we're just there recording it, like, I guess. But to see this moment of like national unity in Ottawa, this beautiful moment of unity, diversity, all that stuff the CBC claims to love, but they're like not even covering it. I mean, how does that make you feel?
It says it all, the fact that they didn't cover it and how they covered it. And if you compare the CBC against independents, the evidence is there, guys. This is what's happening. Just like this. This is happening now. You see all these people here. You see the trucks that are coming in.
Oh, yeah.
There's truckers right there. They just parked in, right? The guys are going to be honking their horns and that. There's going to be speakers over there. People are waking up to the lie. The fact that we planted the question, the seed of doubt. is the media lying to us.
Oh, that's true.
They are, obviously.
The seed of doubt has been planted and it's growing. That's a great way to put it.
So, what can I say, guys? If it's on TV, what do they call it? Television?
Television. Okay. Yeah.
No more.
Anything else to encourage people? Because people are wondering, how can we get involved? How can we help out? Any kind of suggestions there?
Yeah, get involved. Get yourself voted on a student council. Not student council. Yeah, if you're a kid, get on a student council. Have you heard what they're trying to pass this week?
67.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy.
So this is Marxism 101, guys. It sounds nice and fluffy on the surface, but what it does, it's forcing. You're gonna get charged. Hang on, you're not thinking about diversity right now. I'm gonna give you a $50 or $200 ticket. How do you like that?
Yeah.
I can read your mind. That's what's coming down.
You have a Canadian flag. You are arrested. You represent hate. All sorts of insanity, really, because it is insane already.
So it is. It's kind of beige complexion or white complexion. We could just get yourself white.
I have no color whatsoever. Apparently, I'm told that I have no color at all.
Okay, so maybe you're off the hook, but
I'm colorless.
But people with, if you look at which groups were named, it's reverse racism, and the bill itself is racism to start with. The fact that it's calling it out.
Yeah, I haven't actually done the deep dive on 67 yet, but I'm assuming it's just like CRT, critical race theory, expanded.
Oh, it is critical race theory.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. Well, that's It was great chatting with you, sir.
This is one of the steps that leads us into communism or corporatism that we're seeing.
And it's just like the way that young people's minds are just being like massaged is like gross.
2 more weeks, great song. Keep it up.
Thanks, sir. I got another one coming up. Great to see you, man.
We play it on KJJ all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
Keep it up. Thanks for doing all the great work.
Here, wait. Plug your social medias and whatever you just mentioned.
Freedom Report, Noble Savages, myself on Facebook at Jam the Sec. And if you look at which videos have been banned, it's probably one of ours. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Cheers. Cheers. All right. We are down here.
So, yes, great work by Greg Wycliffe. And obviously, we're seeing more and more independent journalists, videographers, YouTubers, social media influencers, people out there practicing the new form of journalism, us included, where we bring you videos from our friends, our colleagues, our co-workers, our other contributors, and we need to support all of these guys because a lot of this material is unedited, uncensored. It's raw video. It doesn't lie, unlike the propaganda that we're being fed these days from these captured
it was the answers I was expecting, unfortunately.
Media institutions, the legacy media, CBC, Global, CTV, TV Ontario, all corrupted by government money, controlled by government money.
What, Igor, you don't want to get
And you can support us at freedomreporters.com.
Igor doesn't want to get clipped by a car, you guys.
You can make donations
What a pussy, dude.
directly on that page by going to that URL, freedomreporters.com, or by clicking the hot link in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions. Let's pick up this feed here.
Move, move, move. And then they did. They got back behind the police line in between the bus that they had and the police. And so I started saying, how dare you be here after what they did to our people in Ottawa? You are ashamed. Brian McFadden is one of the guys riding a police today. He was in Ottawa. He turns around and he goes, "That was the proudest moment of my career."
Are you serious?
Yep.
That's gross.
Brian McFadden is his name.
So this was a police officer that was
one of the horseback riders here today. There's 4 of them. Then the other one let me know. She's like, you're not cute. Why is a police officer looking at me in that way? That's really creepy.
That is weird. These people sound really bitter and kind of gross.
Do you have videos and everything? I don't have videos of when I was banging the jerry cans and when we backed them up and everything.
No, but thank you.
I mean, that kind of resourcefulness. Well, the thing is, we can't come at them full on.
No,
we can't. But there's a lot of ways that we can.
You're right. I can't grab those reins, but I can make them move from the ground with noise, right?
But just to back up for a sec, this was a police officer here that was talking about how the horses trampled someone in Ottawa.
So I was telling them, I was saying, how dare you guys be here after what happened? Again, we're having a peaceful protest. Why bring in the horses? You know? And he just kept telling me, back up, back up, back up, like what they did in Ottawa, right? They have no respect for us. Zero respect. They think they are above us. And I've never experienced that before. I didn't believe that. I always thought the police were on our side. I do believe most of them are. But these few bad apples are putting a stain on the police.
And you can imagine they're probably loading it up with more bad apples, right? Because the real honest cops are probably
They can't do it anymore, right? They can't do it anymore because they understand what they're doing to the people of this country. They're no longer bipartisan. They are on the government side. Like I said in the New York Times article, they are Trudeau's henchmen.
Yeah. Did you see the leaked group chat message?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So the person who was responsible for that was the first person I contacted when this went down, and I gave him all my videos because I know.
What was the leaked group chat? I don't know what.
So there was a leaked group chat.
He was in that group chat. Brian McFadden's name is in that group chat.
Oh, okay. So the leaked group chat, for people watching, the leaked group chat was essentially a group chat between police officers who were in Ottawa, who were sharing the video of the poor woman who got trampled by the police horse. And in the group chat, police officers were saying, "Oh, that's awesome," and whoa, we should do more training like this, as if getting off on the fact that they got to trample some innocent woman protester.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Right? And then I saw that and I read that, but I never saw that in person, right? But to see the look, he literally turned around and he's like, that was the proudest moment in my career. Just really evil. Very evil.
That's like the sick douchebag in the movie, pretty well.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Like the really bad guy.
Well, I can't read my comments very well, but I see things that look like you're one hell of a brave girl, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
We just have to do what's right for our country. They picked the wrong banker to charge in Ottawa. Now I'm a freedom fighter, and this is all I do. I'm dedicating my life to this, guys. We will die on this hill. We will get our freedoms back for future generations. This is over. We have drawn the line.
Nice. How do people find you?
They either love me or they hate me.
Plug your stuff online. When can I vote for you, by the way?
When do people find you?
Plug your social media. Plug your social media.
My Instagram, SammyD06, so SammyD06. But I'm just learning how to post videos and stuff like that, guys. I also have an extremely bad memory, so any videos you have, please feel free to send them to me.
So when are you running for politics? You got the gift of gab.
Change all that. I'm not getting in. We're gonna create something brand new, right, brother? You create it, and the people will come. This whole system is broken.
We don't have to destroy what is. We just have to supplant it by creating something more beautiful.
Exactly. We were on the line when we moved Chaba's truck that night. You know what I mean? You were the one that said get in the line. I was the one with the megaphone. We all work together, so I don't have all the answers. Right. But the people.
Together we do.
Together we do. Yeah. Together we do. You know. Sometimes I can be a bit much, and people like Bubbles can come in and say, "Hey." Yeah. You know, we all take care of each other. Sometimes I get a little bit much though sometimes. But I'm just trying to do what's right. I'm just trying to fight from my heart. You know what I mean? And it's what we all need to do, because the impact we can all make when we raise our voices. I was quiet for a whole year. What impact could I have made in that year if I didn't, you know what I mean, if I stepped out sooner? Today's the day. Today's the day you take the mask off. Today's the day you say, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the truckers put it on the line. We're putting it on the line. I could end up in jail. I'm looking at 2 to 5 years in jail.
For what, mischief?
For mischief, obstruct property, disobey lawful court order, and resisting a peace officer, because he was like doing that. So they said I was resisting.
Did you get your bank account frozen?
My bank account was never frozen because I never accepted donations. And at the time I worked for the bank.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about Canadian identity, because for me growing up, I wasn't really sure what it meant to be Canadian. It's about being brave, World War I, World War II.
It's loving your neighbor. Loving your neighbor. If your neighbor needs sugar, you give them sugar. If your neighbor needs a hug, you give them a hug. And you know, that's reciprocated back to you. We all take care of each other. You're wearing the plaid, brother. Like hockey, beavers, you know, happiness. Like when we used to travel around the world, people loved Canadians because they knew we were so kind and peaceful. What have we turned into?
Yeah.
What have we turned into in the last 20 years? Because I don't know. I don't feel like we might be losing that identity worldwide, right?
Yeah.
I don't have all the answers, but to me, Canadians is loving thy neighbor.
Right.
Right?
And we saw that.
Unconditionally.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to look a certain way or work a certain job or drive a certain car.
Yeah.
But if I can help you, I'll help you. And maybe someday you might be able to help me, or maybe someday you help someone else.
Yeah.
You know, it's just about taking care of each other. It's about community and love.
And that's everything.
Love, Bubbles.
And
Love.
that's everything that we saw in Ottawa, because
Absolutely.
I was reminded of that at the convoy of what it really means to be Canadian.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, like it's great to just be able to walk into a group and make eye contact with people. When you walk down the streets of Toronto right now, nobody wants to make eye contact. We're not connected anymore. You know, we're not a connected consciousness anymore. This has created connected consciousness again. The horns have woken people up. You know, I'm just learning about all this kind of stuff, but like, you know, it's true. It's real when you feel it, you know, and we need to put whatever higher power it is above everything else. That's what I'm able to do. That's how I'm able to put that fear to the side. Right now, I'm shaking in my boots telling you guys all this, but we have to. We have to. We have to raise our voices. When one of us raises our voice, we can all raise our voice, Bubba! Freedom! I love all you guys. I love all you guys.
Can I ask one more question? So initially, the trucker convoy was about, you know, let's end the mandates, let's end these passports, and a lot of people are saying, it was actually Christine Nagel that mentioned this, like it really took a turn when we saw the end of what happened in Ottawa, where like the police violence started and the freezing of the bank account started, and it's almost like this movement has actually taken on a new tone with that in mind. Like the government's played its full hand, and it's like, oh my God.
I think it was easy for people just to look at the vaccine mandate because that was what was in our faces. But at the end of the day, all of this stuff was on our plate. So once we realized the impact we were making, let's go full throttle.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the mandates. It's about all those things. You know, I don't remember what they all were, but, you know, it's about getting back to where we were as Canadians. You know, we might disagree, but we can still love each other.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We don't need to hate each other. We don't need to give each other the middle finger just because you're flying a Canadian flag. Like, that's what this country has become, and that's not okay.
No.
Fly whatever flag you want, you know what I mean? As long as it doesn't have a negative representation. Why suddenly is the Canadian flag turned into a negative representation? The media.
Yeah.
The government.
And it's being flown because it's representing freedom even across the world now.
100%.
Which is hugely inspiring.
Absolutely. People in the U.S. are flying it. People in Australia are flying it. People in Brazil are flying it. Africa's flying it.
And it's like Canada, CBC, this is your cue to like be proud of that and to like stand behind it. And instead they're like, no.
That would be free media, and we all know who pays for that media, and it is not free. We should all know that that stuff on TV is propaganda.
Yeah.
You know, like, remember how we used to make fun of a country back in the day that they couldn't pull stuff up on their internet and, you know, they couldn't look up certain things and everything?
Yeah.
That's what's happening here, and slowly but surely, and people don't realize it, you know?
It's true. It's true.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's okay. We have to fight the apathy in this country, and like a lot of people are just demoralized and completely out of touch.
100%. It's all about people are living in fear, and they're angry, right?
Yeah.
Because they're scared. They're scared that the person's going to infect them with something. I must be a miracle because I don't wear a mask. I'm unvaccinated, and I've been around thousands of people for the last year and a half. You know, sometimes it's hard times. We have to share drinks when we're freedom fighting and everything just to make sure we can maintain. Where's my COVID?
Yeah.
I haven't got COVID. I haven't even gotten sick when my immune system is down. So, like, I'm not saying it's not real, but, like, am I a miracle? It doesn't make sense to me.
Clearly not that serious.
It doesn't make sense to me at all, you know? So why are we so fearful over something that's causing so much more pain, you know?
And before I go, someone from the chat watching wanted to ask, the crime went down in Ottawa, and you were kind of alluding to it before, but like, why do you think that is? What do you think the trucker convoy did to like literally improve the crime rate in Ottawa?
I think when people walked by, everyone made eye contact and people felt loved, you know? So why need to be like that? Even some of the counter protesters that came, The first night they came, they might have been a little bit aggressive. We just said, hey, you're welcome to be here. We might not agree with you, but you're welcome to be here. Grab some food. We hope you enjoy the music. Feel free to come dance with us. Like, just have fun. Let's be free again, you know? And if they want to wear their mask and do it, like, they're free to do it that way, you know? So then the next day they come back, they'd be a little bit nicer and open to chatting, maybe have their sunglasses off and all their face covered. And then by the next day, the lady came back with the Canada flag. I was like,
Let's go.
no way. So as long as you can have the patience and the kindness sometimes, just plant little seeds. You might not be the person, like if somebody's really into it, you know, you might not be the person to change them that day, but plant a little seed in their mind so that way the next person and the next person and the next person and the next person that plants a seed, and eventually that person will turn into a flower garden and they'll be just like us, living in peace, love, unity, regardless of the fucking mountain that they have to climb in front of them. Pardon my language.
Beautiful, beautiful. Plant a little seed. Thank you so much for your time. Cheers. You too. See you around.
And there it is. More great work by Greg Wycliffe and more independent journalism and great interview. And that lady really kind of nailed it and mentioned the Canadian flag, wondered why the Canadian flag has become a representation of something that's supposed to be negative. I can explain that, I think, and it's because our government is no longer a government of the people of Canada. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, in fact, I'd say all three parties right now as they sit, have a globalist agenda. They're no longer focused on making Canada a great country or embracing what some would call nationalism. They've turned the Canadian flag into something that they want people to be embarrassed by. They're equating nationalism with fascism, with far-right extremism. Anyone wearing a Canadian flag is viewed as an extremist, potentially a terrorist, for expressing their national pride. That's why our Prime Minister flew the flag at half staff for months. He wants Canadians to be ashamed of their country. And when you express pride in it, he sees you as a dissident. Because he's not interested in building a better Canada. He's working to hand it over to global interests, a one world government, which is why he calls it the world's first post-nation state. Canada, he says, is the world's first post-nation state. He's giving up our sovereignty to an unelected global government, a one world government. Canada being just one state under its umbrella. That's why the police chief in Calgary doesn't get it. Because he's calling people like that lady part of an anti-democracy movement. He doesn't get it. The opposite is true. It's Justin Trudeau who is anti-democratic. It's our Liberal government that is anti-democratic, propped up by the NDP and softly propped up by the current Conservative government. The Conservatives may be shifting a little bit, but they've been part of the problem too. And if they don't get their act together before the next federal election and revise their platform and approach, they'll just be defeated again. But the more important thing is, these people have every right to express their pride in the country. And what they're doing is lawful. And shutting people down by restricting access or trying to shut them up is wrong. It's unconstitutional. And that's what they're fighting for. They're fighting for freedom of speech. They're fighting for the restoration of their freedoms. Greg Wycliffe, independent journalists in general, they're out there fighting on the front lines too, as are we here on the Maverick News Channel. Let's just dip back into a little bit more of Greg's video here, and before we move on to our next locations.
Guess who else is here? Riot horses.
100 police officers.
100 police. Yeah, we counted 50 cruisers all lined up side by side, all the way down there. I don't remember the name of that road there.
50 cruisers, one grill. Amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Just insane.
Yeah.
And 13 riot horses, I think it was.
It was nuts. I was nearby at that point. I got some video of it.
And no brisket. I mean,
and in many ways, like Adamson Barbecue was the canary in the coal mine, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, like defy the rules, get crushed by the state police, gets crushed by the state media, and it was very much like what happened in Ottawa eventually, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah, very reminiscent.
But you were ahead of the game as well in terms of coming out to the protests. And what was the first kind of red flag for you with everything that's been going on?
You know what? Way back in even in December when we started hearing about events in Wuhan, I can't explain it, but red flags were just going off, and it just said, "Pay attention, pay attention." And then the next big red flag was when the media were feeding us case numbers. But I was waiting for significant data,
more intel.
Yeah, like, okay, case numbers, what does that mean? How many people are symptomatic? How many people are hospitalized? Wasn't seeing that. I was just seeing cases. And that was a giant red flag.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're paying attention, you see lots of red flags, right? Yeah. That makes the big difference. I mean, so you were watching it from ahead of time, and you saw this trucker convoy, right? Like you've been like protesting for a while now. And a lot of people saw the trucker convoy, saw the overpasses, and they said they felt this Canadian pride that they hadn't felt before for the first time in a long time. Yeah, can you relate to that?
Absolutely, yeah. It was amazing. I mean, and it was so universal.
Yeah.
To see, I think the timing was perfect. It just seemed everybody was coming out. It almost gave people permission to now voice their opinion and to their patriotism, to wave the flags. I mean, and there's no greater thing to be Canadian than to fly a Canadian flag. And you just see it everywhere now. And even just driving down the street in our town, you know, we're getting, it's like the Jeep owners, you know, when they see each other, they're honking at each other. But now when you see somebody with a flag, you know, flying out of their back of their truck, or, you know, the roof flags and all that, you know,
it really means something.
It does. Yeah. You just get a smile, you get a warmth about you, and your hey, peace sign, you know, and so it's a great thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And how about you, your feelings of Canadian pride seeing the trucker convoy?
Very emotional. I had to watch it from my couch. I cried the whole time.
Yeah.
It just brings all those warm, fuzzy feelings of love and happiness, and that we can win.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Unity will win.
Yeah. Although we are apparently a small fringe minority. Small fringe minority.
Define the word small.
Honk, honk. Nice. Very cool. Where'd you get that?
I made it.
You made that?
I'm just saying, I make signs for a living, so I do all our rally signs.
Dude, that's your contact.
I do the pins and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So last night I was like, oh, it's gonna rain maybe.
Yeah.
I was like, well, maybe I'll just put on a garbage bag.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wow, looks a little plain. I got to jazz it up. You know, I can't leave well enough alone. So I just
the people who are part of this movement are so resourceful. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. I love, because you know what, I have a lot of these ideas for certain signs, rally signs, but I see the other ones like, that's a cool saying. That's a cool. Oh, that's neat. You know, there's
get more ideas.
Oh yeah, all the time. So,
but I wanted to ask you about feelings of Canadian pride as well, seeing the convoy specifically, right?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was lucky enough to be at the Overpass rally, and I was also in Ottawa. And I tell you, you see every group represented. The true picture of unity, brother and sisterhood, all different ages, all different ethnicities, religions, walks of life, careers. It has truly brought us all together and stripped us of labels, categories, stereotypes, just reminded us that the same soul, the same spirit in you lives in me.
That's right.
And I think that has been the best part of this. Just that high vibe awakening that we really are in this together.
And I can see your face. I can see your naked face.
Yes.
Oh
Beautiful
my God.
faces. A lot of beautiful faces. It, like in Ottawa, seeing the kids playing road hockey, that it was so emotional. Their rosy cheeks running around, smiling, hip checking each other, and you knew they were probably all strangers, but they all just came together and playing good old Canadian road hockey. Like, can't be anything better than that. And the kids are the ones that have been paying the biggest price out of all of this, truly. The elderly being isolated as well, of course. But with the children who are they're our future, I'm really concerned 10 years, 12 years from now, what their mental health is going to be like when they get to that age, when they start to mature, or hopefully they're able to mature. I'm sure that there's going to be a decline in that. I've even heard recently that I think it was the WHO has now issued new, updated the numbers of how many words a child should know by a certain age. It's now been lowered.
Like, interesting.
How just absolutely wrong.
It's been reduced to cases, COVID, vaccine, and misinformation. Those are the only words they know now as kids.
Yeah, and fear.
Yeah. But I was going to go back to that. Like, it's true. The kids have taken such a toll during this time, and it's like hardly even talked about, right? Like the negative implications of the wearing masks and everything. And you were talking about how there was not much information ever being shared about what's going on. And I guess I kind of wanted to change the conversation to talking about the media, right? Because you were saying you were seeing things you were sitting on your couch watching like the overpasses and things like this. And do you watch the news? Never?
Never.
No.
That's all lies. Why would I watch that?
Right.
Like watching the Comedy Network.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's brutal. But I mean, I used to appreciate the CBC, and then obviously something has gone wrong recently. But
to believe that's who you're supposed to trust, right? That's who you're to count on for all your information, all your news. And we were brought up to believe that that's who we trust, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and then all of a
trust
sudden
your doctors, trust your teachers, trust your all these people we've been brought up to trust. We now realize that we cannot trust them anymore.
Yeah,
they failed us completely.
It's scary. It's very scary.
Yeah. It almost feels like a sort of Canadian reset, the trucker convoy, because it's we're finding out, we can't really trust this institution. We can't really trust that institution. And it's almost like this reset of we need to depend on one another. And for example, people are like, I love your reporting. And it's reporting. And it's I'm just kind of turning the camera on. But now it's I guess it's also part of our job though, to get the truth out there because no one else is doing it. But
the government is the virus. The media was the variant and the truckers was the cure.
That's right. Absolutely. How about you, ma'am? Your experience with the Canadian media? Did you ever have sympathy for the Canadian media? Has that changed, or?
From years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I canceled TV in our home. I didn't want the kids taking in that garbage. The commercials alone, every other commercial was to do with a pharmaceutical product. And I just had an awful feeling about it from way back then. Canceled it, so stayed away from news. But what was interesting, one of the reasons I went to Ottawa was because I saw a few snippets of what was being shown on mainstream. And I said, I have to get down there. I have to see things with my own eyes. We can't just sit back and blindly trust information. We have to get out there. We're responsible. We have to take that responsibility and see with our own eyes, witness what's going on. And so I was expecting this state of emergency. When I got there, it was like the most fun winter festival that you could imagine, with the vibes that I was just talking about earlier. I had friends simultaneously while I was showing them videos of what's happening. They're watching news showing businesses barricaded and focusing on padlocks. And I'm showing them my videos saying, this is really what's going on. Street parties, street hockey, people feeding the homeless.
It's true. And like on the news, they made it seem like all these Ottawa residents is going, oh, this is so horrible. It's so awful. It's like, bring your kids, bring your family. It's a wicked time. Take your freaking mask off. Look at the trucks. Hug some people.
The same Ottawa residents bringing us out hot food and cards and money and hugs and
thank you for being here. They're so corrupt. Finally, someone showed up.
Yeah. Those people, right? Yeah. Oh, wow. Just incredible.
But I just noticed your button here. Don't poke the mama bear. Hashtag Mama Bears Project. Tell me about that. That sounds great.
Yes. Well, you know what? From the beginning, there have been a lot of women leading the charge in this.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if we're just a little more tuned in, like intuition-wise, or I don't know what the explanation is.
I actually have like a theory on this, because like I've been watching this movement for a while of like, you know, fighting against the COVID measures or even being suspicious of the COVID measures. And a common thread I find is I have kids. I have kids. What does the future look like? And I think to break through all this fear programming, it does take that maternal or paternal instinct of like something's wrong here. And like the mama bear, I think, is a great actual like representation of that whole phenomena.
Yes, just standing up. I mean, you know, a lot of folks in the movement are retired age. A lot of them are older, but we're out here for the younger generation. We're so concerned about the children and the grandchildren and those yet to come. And that's really who we're standing up for. You know, children should never have to bear responsibility of keeping adults safe and protected. It is our job as the adult, the parent, the coach, the teacher to protect and guide the younger ones. So yeah, when you come after the kids, the mama bears start growling. They wake up and
I did an interview 2 weeks with a mama bear, a mom of 5. And, you know, when I first started talking to her on live, she was like livid. They should be in jail. Health minister should be in jail. But I talked to her later on, and she was talking about how, you know, through these public health loopholes, they are taking away the rights of parents to simply raising their child. Where, you know, the child does not need parental consent to get a jab. You know, like it's insanity. Have you like heard like specific stories about this yourself?
Well, I remember when they set up a vaccine clinic here at Nathan Phillips Square. And there were people coming and
It's very creepy.
yes, and people were trying their best to alert adults to what's happening.
And John Tory's like, hey, I'm John Tory. Bring your kid down here.
Here's your ice cream.
Here's your ice cream.
Here's your delicious French fries and whatever the heck else they were.
Hey, you know who else lures kids with ice cream?
Exactly. Evil people. Evil, gross, disgusting, perverted.
It's creepy. Yeah. Listen to your gut, guys. If it feels creepy, listen to your gut. Sorry, I cut you off.
That's right. No. That was deeply disturbing. I mean, my kids have needed permission forms to go on a little skating trip at school. They've needed permission to participate in certain gym activities. And yet, at that point, kids could walk in with no parent accompanying them, no health history or information, and walk in and just get this injection. I mean, people have to wake up.
Hello. It's pretty obvious the insanity of it all. But were you yourself born in Canada?
No, I was.
So there's Greg Wycliffe great YouTuber, great freedom reporter, great freedom fighter, doing great work at today's worldwide freedom protest in Toronto. And definitely check out his channel. And you know, we're happy to direct you to him and promote what he's doing, because he does fantastic work, and we're lucky that he's out there doing what he does. And we should check in, I think, on the People's Convoy, because those guys are putting it on the line as well. And this was a worldwide freedom protest. And of course, those guys have been down there. Well, they started their journey weeks ago. And a few interesting things happened with them today. Here's live feeds. These are live feeds out of Hagerstown Speedway outside Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
This is where the truckers stage, where they stay.
Headlights in the background, and it's still
And during the day, they've been going out, making their way around the beltway of Washington, D.C. Yesterday, about 4 trucks, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. 4 trucks actually made it around police barricades that have been set up to prevent the trucks from getting down into Washington, D.C. But 4 trucks did actually get down there. And the day before that, a bunch of cars that were part of the People's Convoy made it down into Washington, D.C. And they didn't cause any traffic jams. They managed to drive around. And the cops followed them, but didn't actually pull them over yesterday. Today, there was a little bit of a problem, because as the convoy was making its way along its route, there was a person in a Tesla that apparently started to weave into the convoy and started to do some brake checking, slamming the brakes on in front of the convoy repeatedly, and almost caused some accidents. So what the truckers did is they blocked him in. They surrounded him, blocked him in, and
make sure you subscribe it.
And called the cops.
So hit that sub button.
So the cops came down,
hit the thumbs
and
up.
we can just run a little bit of that video for you
There should be
here.
800 thumbs up in his
Actually.
chat room, in his video right now, because there's 800 people watching here. I know a lot of people watch on TV, so you can't participate. But if you
Not
could
sure
just pick up
exactly
the
how much
phone,
you can see from this angle, but
Alex
this was a video that came out of there today.
that would be
That's a live feed that we were showing you there. This is recorded video from around the time when that car was blocked in. We'll just let this roll while I talk to you about it. So I guess this car was weaving in and out of the convoy, slamming its brakes on. The convoy had to keep stopping and stopping, and he was driving dangerously. So the trucks pulled around him and blocked him in.
We can let the highway go around us. Get out of lanes.
They did it in a way to allow the traffic to continue to flow around them, but that guy in the Tesla, some red Tesla, they blocked him in, prevented him from getting away. And then the cops were called, and they showed up. So this was YouTuber Saznak, who had this feed come in, and he was recording some of what went on there.
What's up? That nice, man. Oh, good job. You see the car do it? Oh, no, red car come up there and slam the brakes on. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Hey, you want to go through? All right, thank you. You want to go through to get around? Thank you, thank you. Good deal.
So it wasn't the truckers
Oh, you bet. Thank you.
causing any problems. It was this guy in the Tesla. In addition to that, it's been the cops blocking exits, setting up roadblocks around Washington, D.C. They've been the problem for people trying to make their way around and just get around town. They're the ones that have been causing all the traffic jams there. So it's been an interesting time for the People's Convoy in Washington, D.C. The trucks have been prevented really from going down and driving through Washington, D.C. to this point. So the cops taking a page in a way from what they saw happen in Ottawa, and they don't want those trucks getting anywhere near the downtown area of Washington, D.C. On the other side, the truckers have also learned from what happened in Ottawa, inspired by what happened in Ottawa, and they don't want any violence. They're trying to remain entirely lawful and entirely peaceful, and they have been doing just that. They don't want any of the truckers arrested. They don't want to cause problems like that. They want their presence known, though, and they want change. So that's been their approach so far. And each day they've been sort of ramping things up a little bit, trying things a little bit different. As I say, a few trucks did make their way down. 4 trucks made their way into Washington, D.C. But as far as going down there and staging a full-blown demonstration in front of the nation's capital, like right downtown in Washington, D.C., that has not happened yet. So it'll be interesting to see what does transpire. And apparently what happened here with that Tesla, the cops showed up. Apparently they let the guy go. That's the word we got when we made some calls down there to our contacts at the People's Convoy. They let the guy go. We're going to try to set up another interview with some of our people on the ground there, maybe for tomorrow night, to kind of bring you up to date in a more comprehensive way with what's going on with those guys. They're taking a bit of a different approach down there in Washington, D.C., and they have had some success because they did meet with Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Ron Johnson. They met with Jim Jordan and some other politicians as well. So they have managed to at least get some dialogue going in that regard, but there's still a long way to go, and we know that it's going to be a lengthy process, especially when they do it in this way. So we can come back to some of this stuff in a little while, but we should touch, I think, on other news of the day. And a story of note is the Russians used for the very first time a hypersonic missile in battle, targeted a weapons depot, and released this video today. I'll let this roll, and we can chat briefly about this. We won't go into too much depth because it is what it is.
On March 18th, Kinzhal missile system armed with hypersonic aeroballistic missiles destroyed a large Ukrainian forces underground depot containing missiles and aircraft ammunition in the settlement of Delyatin of Ivano-Frankivsk region in western Ukraine. Coastal missile system Bastion destroyed a radio and reconnaissance center of the Ukrainian forces in the settlements of Veliki Dalnik and Velikodolinsk in the Odessa region. On March 18th, Kinzhal missile system.
So that was the statement from the Russian government, Russian military today regarding the deployment of a hypersonic missile. The first time a weapon like that has been used in combat. And I don't know if I would call that an escalation, but it's certainly a development. And it's worth noting because the U.S., of course, is sending in those so-called kamikaze drones, and we're going to see, as Scott Ritter pointed out last night, probably a lot more death, although not necessarily a prolonged battle because of the additional weapons being sent by NATO and NATO countries, but more death. And it makes the conflict more deadly. Yeah. Strange times, dangerous times. And it all seems to be connected, intertwined. Why do I say that? Well, I think it's pretty obvious when you start to connect the dots. And what we've seen is even today, the International Energy Agency is now talking about an energy emergency. It's interesting the way they use a phrase like emergency all the time to justify government actions. There always seems to be some new emergency. And here's a story out of CNN. It's not being reported just there. It's being reported widely now. But says the governments around the world must consider drastic steps to slash oil demand in the face of an emerging global energy crisis caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the International Energy Agency warned on Friday. Well, the energy crisis is also the result of our governments refusing to pump oil. It's because of our governments canceling drilling contracts. It's because of our governments shutting down pipelines. It's because our governments don't want to pump oil out of Canada and the United States. We have lots of energy. They don't want to get it. They don't want to use it. There's a war on oil going on. It's been going on for a while. There's a war on cars. So what does this International Energy Agency want to do? They want to implement a 10-point emergency plan. They want to reduce speed limits on highways by at least 6 miles per hour. They want people to work from home up to 3 days a week, where possible. And they want car-free Sundays in cities. Car-free Sundays. Folks, when I see this and I hear things like car-free Sundays, I think we all need to listen very carefully to what is being said. This is another form of almost like a lockdown. They're locking down your car for at least 1 day a week. If we allow them to do that, what will that lead to? It'll lead to taxation or fines, tickets. You get caught driving your car on a Sunday, they're going to pull you over and ask you where you're going. Why are you going there? And if you don't have a permit to drive your car on that day at that time, if you don't have a government-approved reason to be driving your car on a Sunday, you'll get a ticket. And if you're not on board, you're a dissenter. If you're not on board, you're not part of the team. You're not working with the collective. Heck, We're all in it together, right? So leave your car at home on Sunday. Or else. That's not freedom. That's not freedom. Gleichschaltung. Gleichschaltung. More control. Dissenters not to be tolerated. A small fringe minority with unacceptable views acting against the collective. Anyone acting against the collective must be cut out and disposed of. How? Through fines, tickets, punishment, incarceration, confiscation of property. Take your car out on enough Sundays, get enough tickets, they'll take your license away. Or you'll have to pay some pretty hefty fines. I don't know what the penalties might be, but you see where that's going? This, again, the tip of the iceberg. And there's more of this to come. Much more. People need to wake up, and they need to wake up quick. And if you're already awake, you need to wake up your family, your friends, your neighbors. You need to make people aware. The way this story is even written, and this is a cheerleading article for it, because CNN is a propaganda machine. It says the IEA is suggesting the headaches would be better than the alternative. They say that the emergency steps would disrupt or even slow down a world economy that remains largely addicted to fossil fuels, especially for transportation. As a result of Russia's appalling aggression against Ukraine, the world may well be facing its biggest oil supply shock in decades, with huge implications for our economies and societies, IEA Executive Director Faith Byrol said in a statement. It's all Russia's fault. I see. Well, it could be that canceling oil drilling contracts and shutting down pipelines and reducing oil output domestically might contribute to making our countries energy dependent and vulnerable, both economically and militarily. No foresight. Or maybe there's a lot of foresight, because maybe some of this is intentional. These people on the left, these fascio communists, they don't like cars. Cars represent freedom. Freedom to go where you want, when you want, without checking in with anybody. Freedom to burn as much fuel as you want, without checking in with anybody. If you've got the money and the market supports what you're doing, you go out, you buy yourself some fuel, put it in your car, go where you want. Cars represent freedom. See the USA in your Chevrolet. Not anymore. Not on a Sunday. Not on a Sunday. And they like it that way. Boy, how times have changed. They'll make it illegal to drive your car on a Sunday. You think they don't like this? They love this. They love it. Oh, you don't like it? Take the bus. Oh, can't get on a bus because you're not quadruple vaxxed or don't want to wear a mask? Just buy an electric car. Why? Well, there are a whole lot of reasons why they want to push electric cars. We'll get into that in another episode. And I'm not against electric cars, but I am against government coercion. I believe in freedom. And cars represent freedom, freedom of mobility, freedom of movement, even freedom of expression. Sometimes people like to just go for a drive. It's been like that for a whole long time. It's been a pastime for people living in a big country like the United States, Canada, cross-country trips, a drive in the country, a Sunday drive. Your toddler is a little cranky, put him in the back seat. Your baby, right? Go for a little drive. Maybe goes to sleep back there while you go for a little Sunday cruise. Go to a car show on a Sunday. Car show is going to be banned on Sundays if there's car-free Sundays. They'd love that. These globalists, fascio-communists, they hate classic cars. To them, they're dinosaurs. They don't see any of the positive community aspects behind any of that, nor do they appreciate the history, which frankly should be preserved and cherished. Gasoline prices are way up, folks, and they're likely going to go even higher. OPEC's not going to increase production. And the answer is for us to tap into the resources that we have. Our politicians won't allow it. They're keeping us impoverished. They have thrust us into this conflict with Ukraine. They've put us in the middle of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. They're forcing you to choose a side by censoring information and bombarding you with propaganda and shaming you if you don't choose the way that they want you to think and don't support the things that they want you to support. Dissenters not allowed. So the bottom line is the government has solutions, could implement solutions. And even if OPEC increases the oil supply, if they do turn on the tap more, we're still not energy independent. We're dependent on those OPEC countries. And those OPEC countries like that. Why do you think they fund some of these environmental groups? So that we don't produce the energy domestically, so that our money goes overseas. There's more going on than meets the eye. But the government will continue to blame Russia. They'll continue to blame the oil companies. They'll lay the blame on everyone but themselves because they're implementing an agenda. And as far as they're concerned, this energy crisis, this energy emergency is an opportunity for them to accelerate what they're doing with their agenda and exert more control over us. Well, we're used as economic cannon fodder in this war between Russia and Ukraine. There's no need for us to be paying what we're paying for our gasoline. But we are, and we're going to continue to pay, and we'll end up paying more and more and more. All this, and then there's the climate change emergency, which is laid out here through this notice that has gone out to chambers of commerce across Canada. Here's, I'm going to show you this email that I received. This one went to the London, Ontario, Canada Chamber of Commerce, came from the chamber. Climate change impacts everyone, including businesses. Climate change impacts everyone. It also represents opportunities for local businesses, new jobs, and economic development. And they talk about this city's climate emergency action plan and how you can get involved. And they talk about this is a local thing, but other municipalities are doing similar things. Other municipalities are taking votes on this idea that there's a climate emergency. There's an energy emergency. There's a COVID emergency. There's an energy emergency, apparently, a climate emergency. If there's an emergency, then I guess they implement emergency acts. And it gives government the justification to implement serious control measures in order to combat these emergencies. Do you see how it works? And then to get the corporatocracy under control, they work through agencies, institutions like chambers of commerce, and promote the idea that, hey, you know what, Joe? You can make a lot of money by getting on board with this whole climate emergency idea. Support this. There'll be government contracts to implement this kind of program or this greenhouse gas mitigation plan. And if you don't, and you don't do what we say, then you'll be penalized. You won't get grants. You'll suffer because you'll be penalized through heavier taxation, perhaps, or maybe even laws that will crack down on you. So what choice do you have, Joe? If you're the CEO of a corporation or a big company or a small or medium-sized business in a city that declares there is a climate emergency. You get on board, I guess, right? Get on the gravy train. Pick up those government grants. Are you doing it because it's the right thing to do for the environment? Or are you doing it because you're afraid that you're going to lose out on the grants and afraid that you're going to be punished if you don't? Maybe you believe in it. Maybe you do subscribe to the point of view that there is a climate emergency. I don't want to get too deep into the whole climate change issue here tonight, but I do see the politics behind it. And if you don't, your eyes aren't fully open. Gleichschaltung. How do they control the institutions? How do they control police? How do they control us all? It's systemic. And I'm not talking about systemic racism. I'm talking about systemic control. Gleichschaltung. 20 months from the time of the Reichstag fire to the time that the Nazis had full control using these Gleichschaltung tactics. 20 months. Canada is well on its way. We're not talking just about Marxism, socialism, communism, or even just fascism. We're talking about a hybrid ideology. Some people call it globalism. It's on full display, but people don't recognize it because it's never developed in quite this way before. This is a hybrid. And that's why I said yesterday that the left, communists, socialists, fascism has, that the left has its roots in fascism. Well established before World War II. The political graph was redrawn after World War II in order to separate the fascists and fascism from everything on the left. But both are authoritarian. Both are totalitarian. Both use coercion to control the population. That is what we are looking at. And we are running out of time. We have very little time left. Canada is already gone. Much of the United States is already gone. The United States is coming back a little bit. We need to fight to get Canada back peacefully and politically. And we're seeing that outpouring of nationalism. That's what the politicians are afraid of. Nationalism. Patriotism. If you're a globalist, like Justin Trudeau, if you're a Nazi supporter, like our Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, seen here holding a Nazi banner, if you subscribe to that, if you support that, and blend that with a globalist ideology, perspective, objective, you're afraid of people who wrap themselves in the Canadian flag. That's why the police chief in Calgary is targeting the freedom protesters. He's been told to. They've all been told to. And a lot of them are okay with it. Because they have sold the idea of nationalism as fascism, mistakenly equating, conflating nationalism with fascism, because Hitler was a nationalist. But so too was Castro. Anyone proud of their country or promoting their country is a nationalist. That is nationalism, pride in your country. But that does not make you a fascism. Nationalism is not fascism. There's nothing fascistic about about having pride in Canada. We were never a fascist country. That's why Canada was always seen as one of the most tolerant, loving, welcoming places on earth. We need to get that back. But that explains why they're afraid of the Canadian flag, why they don't take pride in the Canadian flag, because they don't believe in Canada, because we have a government that is implementing a completely different system and a completely different ideology. And the war on the car, the war on oil, the war on you driving your car around on a Sunday, that's just another step, another thing they're taking away. Will it happen? Don't be surprised if it does. And don't be surprised if it happens very, very quickly. Yeah, in some places they're going to let you take your mask off for the summer. Probably bring it back in the fall. But while you have the mask off, they're going to take away your right to drive the car on a Sunday. Give you a little here, take a little more there. And that's why the police chief in Calgary doesn't get it. doesn't understand what people are fighting for. Says they're incoherent. No, they're not. That lady spoke with eloquence. The lady in the truck that we heard from during Greg Wycliffe's video. Smart lady. And all the people down there see it. I think you guys see it at home too. Everyone in our Maverick family. We are all Mavericks. Because you see it, because you are awake. Because we're all waking up. And if we're not, and if you are awake, give somebody a shake. Because folks, like I said, we're running out of time with this new legislation in front of Parliament on censorship, the hate speech laws that are already in place. These are all weapons that the Trudeau government in Canada is going to make use of to come after political enemies. They're coming for all of us. All of us. All of us. Yes. Maverick family. The Maverick family. So lots more to share with you tomorrow night and through the week. We on Monday as well, we have one of the candidates running to become the leader of the Federal Conservative Party in Canada joining us. He'll be on live. So that will be a treat. And we have a special guest, I think, lined up for Tuesday as well to talk about the new Blue Party in Ontario, where there is an election coming up this June. So some political talk on the Canadian side coming up on those nights this coming week. So lots of great guests. And tomorrow night, I'm not sure if we're going to have a guest on or not, but we do have some great subject matter to share with you. So please come back tomorrow night. If you can support us, we are the Maverick News Channel. We are the antivirus program for your mind. And you can donate to support our work at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. You can click the hot link in the YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook descriptions, or subscribe to our channel. And again, if you are watching on YouTube, please consider going over to Rumble and subscribing there, because there's a lot more security and stability over there, because we're not subjected to the same censorship on that platform, and we can speak more freely over there than we can here. So please consider doing that. And with that being said, we have been on now for 3 hours. We will be checking back in with the People's Convoy tomorrow. I'm going to see if we can get an interview lined up on that front tomorrow night. And we'll have more coverage on the war in Ukraine as well. So lots of stuff to share with you tomorrow. Plus, whatever the top news stories are of the day tomorrow, we will be providing analysis and commentary on that too. So to all of you, thank you so much for tuning in this evening and joining me here on the Rick Walker Show. Brendan will be back with me on Monday, but I'll be back with the Rick Walker Show as I run solo again tomorrow, and look forward to having you all join us here again on the Maverick News Channel. And with that being said, I will catch you all on the flip side.